So welcome everyone. Today we're gonna do a couple live deal breakdowns. And so what I'm gonna do is walk you through a number of deals that I have done in the past. We looked at some of these deals I have moved forward with. Some of these deals we said, no way, we're not gonna do it. It's gonna be terrible. And so I'm going to walk you through some real numbers in real time here as we go through it. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I'll do my best to kind of answer them as we go. And so, all right, for some context, I own 36 auto repair shops today. They're all franchises. They're Midas. We do over $50 million in revenue. We have 200 plus employees. I've continuing to grow. Our goal this year is to buy another 5 locations or so. And, as we march to continue growing the business. And so I'm looking at deals every day. We're looking at a number of different types of deals. And so we're going to start with that. I'm going to start with that. So, and then I have a series of questions that we go through. So, types of deals. So in our business, we're looking at a couple. One is going to be, let's just do types of deals. So the easiest ones are going to be our acquisitions, especially in the franchise business where there's other existing franchises that are, in the market around the country. Those by far are the easiest ones to be able to handle because they're already existing Midas. They're already the same brand. They're already operating pretty much the same business model. And for us to go in and just change ownership on those is like a shoo-in. So, in a franchise business, franchisees want to sell to franchisees. It's by far the easiest way to grow. And so if there's an opportunity in a market that we operate in or adjacent market, that's going to be the number one priority. From there, we're going to look at acquisitions of competitors, whether that's like an independent or, it could be some corporate brand. It doesn't really matter. But so it's an existing competitor in the same exact space as us, acquiring, their business and then converting it into our brand. It's important for me that everything is consistent across it. So even though, technically I have to be because we're a franchise, we have a non-compete, like I'm not able to operate a Brian's Quick Lube or Tire and Auto or whatever. But even if I didn't have that, I wouldn't want it. Like it's so much easier to grow the same thing over and over and over again rather than having, like Main Street Auto and, Southern something auto and this and that and like all these different brands. And yeah, maybe it's all the same company and use the same point of sale, but like it becomes different marketing, different reputation, just like different things. And I think that's in part what allows people in franchises to grow and own a lot of stores is because there's less variables that you have. So the more that we can do to eliminate variables, so it's the same thing over and over and over again, and that we can just like copy and paste it, the easier it is to grow. So simplicity allows you to scale, while complexity will often create bottlenecks and lead to failure. So I'm going to look at competitors. I'm going to try to acquire them. If I acquire them, I'm going to convert them into our brand. And that's on the purchase side, right? And then I'm going to have what I'm going to say like is, I'm going to call it new stores. I could probably call it something better, but whatever. So these are stores that we lease that are vacant. So somebody leaves the space and we're going to go in there and we are going to lease an existing shop. We look at those deals. There's also what I'm going to call development deals. So this would be, we would take a vacant space that maybe is a warehouse or a Rite Aid or like some sort of in our case, automotive, and we would turn it into an automotive. Now, if you don't own automotive, it'd be the similar thing where you're going to go into a place and convert it into whatever you do. And finally is ground up. So find some dirt, build a building from ground up, and then you're good to go. Oh, I forgot an important one here, which is multi-unit acquisitions deals. So instead of buying a single location, it's multiple ones. So we've done packs of 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and so those deals are really good. And it's funny it is actually much easier, usually quicker, and way more profitable to do a multi-unit deal where you're buying a group of 5 or 6 or 7 versus a single store. Like I've spent more money on lawyer fees and time and effort to get a single store done than I have in 7. And part of it is just like I don't know, the guys that are like have more stores are generally more advanced. They generally have better attorneys. They have done more deals themselves, so they know how it all works. And like, I don't know, it's pretty funny. You put all this pressure yourself and think it's like going to be 7 times more work, but it's really not. So anyway, and so when I go through each one of the deals, so I'm going to walk you through a bunch of examples here, and this is what I'm looking at, which is number one, does this fit my model? So I have a very specific model that I want to follow in terms of like how big, the location, the size, just the general like feel of it all. It has to fit. Again, we have this idea of simplicity is what allows us to scale. So the more simple and the more that the thing can fit into the box that we already operate, the easier it will be to continue to copy and paste. Then I'm going to look at income, so potential income. So I want to compare what is it going to cost me to run this place? Like really like what my rent is usually what the biggest factor is versus what do I think it can make? How big is it? The area itself, all those things. Then I'm going to look at, does it align my long-term strategy? So I think one of the most important things we can do is create a strategy that, a multi-year strategy. Say, all right, over the next 3 years, for example, for me, I want to get to $100 million of revenue in our auto repair business. To do that, I want to have 50 stores doing about $2 million each. And so that means when I'm looking at new stores, I need 14 more. Each one of them, I'm going to have this thing of like, can this store do $2 million? Like my goal is to have, a lot of really great stores, not a whole bunch of average or below average one. And so maybe we'll look at a store and we're like, hey, this thing could do all right. Maybe we can do $1 million out of there. Maybe we can make some money. But like, we're trying to raise the bar and we're trying to have this long-term strategy of like super high performance. And so I may pass on that type of deal. Resource cost, so time and energy. There's some locations that you'll find that, man, like they could completely suck like everyone's attention and time and money into it because it's like a ton of work. And so it's really like a question of, is it worth it? And then any red flags that I'm not seeing. So I'm really going to try to take a contrarian take to say, like, what's the worst that could happen here? What am I not seeing in this? So, all right, so let's go. Let me kind of dive into some of these. I have a pretty easy financial model. I'm gonna show you. Hopefully, I'll be able to do it from memory here. And let me just like close this up. And by the way, if you guys have any questions as we go, put them in the chat. Good afternoon, Kevin from Florida, Lakeland, Florida. I think that's by Orlando. I was just in Orlando at Disney with my kids. But all right, so first store, we're gonna go. I'm gonna do the easiest, not the easiest one, but a pretty simple one, which is like this one, right? We're gonna lease up a vacant store. So the scenario is, let's make sure my text is like big enough here on the little. Okay, let me just make it a little bit bigger. All right, that looks better. Okay, cool. All right, so the scenario is we find a vacant shop to lease. So, all right. So the number of factors I'm going to look at is, let me just kind of get the things here. All right. So does it fit my model? So in my case, I'll just pull it up on the maps. Since this was like a real location. I've made like other videos on this store. So, all right. So first thing, does it fit my model? This is the first thing I care about. So this is the store itself. It is, if we look at more dates here, it used to be a competitor of ours, Monroe. And so I want to see, number one, I want 5, I want 6 bays is my average thing. That's what my model is. Whoops. Where'd it go? This store is 6 bays. It's 5 in the front and 1 in the back. So it fits that. I want locations for me that are on major retail roads. Like I need to be by fast food because we're like in the retail business. Again, you're going to have whatever like is your criteria. But here we're looking around, it's by a Dunkin'. It's a brand new Starbucks. Good enough for me. If it's good enough for Starbucks, it's good enough for me. So that's good. So we've got the size is good. The location looks good. I also want to look at the footprint of it. So I create these like Google Maps. So this is like a Google map with all my stores. This location's right here. So I have locations above it. I have one below it. My main concern with this location was the proximity to the second one. And so we're able to do some sort of like competitor analysis, cannibalization report. And, they thought that at max that it would hurt this store by about 10%. So 10% cannibalization. In the end, I don't know how much of that I want to believe, but we decided, it was worth the risk to us because like we drove it. We just felt like this thing fits. This thing seems to fit. So, sorry. So put together these maps. This is what allows us to answer the question of, does it fit in the footprint? Does it kind of make sense? Like a location that's dead set in our footprint is way more valuable to me than like if it was out here in Reading where it's like way, way far, or if it's like, if it's in Lancaster. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later about what it takes to grow out to like a market like that. But in this case, anything that's like right smack in the center, perfect. Fits my like my footprint there. Hold on, let me close some of these tabs so Google doesn't hate me. All right, so model. So you're going to have to develop your checklist for your model. For mine, it's size, which is good, location, which is good, and then footprint, which is like, where does it fit in the bigger scope of your business? All right, potential income. So now long-term strategy, totally good because it's right in my footprint. We think it's got the potential. Resource time on this one, because it was an existing Monroe, competitor. All we really needed to do was change the sign, change the paint, update the waiting room. It took us 30 days. And I'll talk about some of the numbers, but I think it was $110K. This is what we put into the store in 30 days of time. So one of the lowest cost deals that I've ever had. 30 days is pretty quick. So that was pretty good. And red flags. This would be one where what we heard was the most that Monroe could they could do it there was like 10K a month is what the manager told us. So, or 50K a month. And so it's like, that would be a significant money losing store for us, but with our cost structure. And so it was kind of like the biggest red flag is like, all right, they failed here. And if they failed, like, do I think I could win? And if not, like, I'm signing a big lease, I'm putting money into this thing. Like, I have an ego. I don't want to lose. And so that would be the red flag. It's like they failed here. So why do I think I'm going to do better? And, we'll talk about that. So what's the potential income? So then this is what everybody wants to know. And this is what we got to figure out. Right. And so I have a really simple way that I do this, and I'm going to show you right here. So the first thing I care about, or the biggest thing I care about, is what's the rent. So rent and property taxes in my business are the two biggest ones. So here we were able to negotiate rent of $7,000. I think the property taxes are like $1,500 a month. All right. Then from here, I'm gonna run to see like what the rest of my fixed costs are. Now my business, I want to say they're about 20,000. When I go ahead and do the whole thing, we'll find that tune up a little bit. So all in, I'm into this thing for 30K a month is like my total fixed costs. So then I'm gonna build out a pretty basic financial model to figure out two things. One, what is my break-even cost? So how much revenue do I have to do just to like break even and cover all my costs? And then the more exciting question, which is as we continue to grow this thing, how much money do we think we can make? So I'm just gonna start putting in some numbers here just to kind of see how it flows, and then we'll tinker with them. Okay. So most of my stores require about $65,000 to break even. And so I'm going to put that in there. Cost of goods sold. So, right, this is our, I'm going to put this here. Cost of goods sold for us is about 24%. So I always like to think of my business as percentages. So everything's a percentage. It's what allows me to simplify. I want to simplify as much as I can. So we know we're going to spend about 24% on cost of goods. Payroll's a little bit, harder of a thing because if you just get this right, here we go, 18. Payroll, we range from anywhere from 25 to 30% roughly. what I would actually do here is build out what the staffing model would look like. So for example, we'd say, all right, we got like, we have a manager, we have an assistant manager, we have 4 techs. Each one of them is going to have some sort of like guarantee. We're going to figure what all those numbers are. And, but for now, just for like rough numbers here, we'll start with this, then we can back into it. Then, we're going to have variable costs. So every business has got to have variable costs. These are ones that are going to be like up and down based on how much sales you do. In our business, we have to pay 10% roughly to Midas for royalties and national advertising. We're also going to have credit card fees, which are usually about like 3%. So all in, I'm usually about 13% in on my variable cost. And so I'll have that. And then we know my fixed costs from above are up here. Actually, I'm just gonna move these down because that's easier. And I usually do like to try to break out rent and property taxes because these are the only things that really vary when you think about everything else, like it takes to run these things. They're kind of the same, right? You've got utilities, you've got health insurance, you've got all these different subscriptions and all this different stuff. So anyway, all in costs. So I take this, I add up my fixed costs, my area costs, my cost of goods, and then my profit. Man, I nailed that. Didn't I say about 65K is what I needed to break even? So rough numbers here, guys, but you can kind of get the point. So all in, $65,000 is what I'm going to need, assuming that I can get payroll at 30%, with rent at 7K, 15K, all in fixed costs. I'll just actually, just to make this simpler, let's just go like this. Let me simplify this further so we don't have a bunch of this plus this plus this plus this plus this plus this. Okay. Oh man, I think I did. Did I have something doubled? All right, now I'm losing 7,000, so something's off here, or maybe I was just not right on what that number was. All right, never mind. I'm wrong. This number should be like 15 then. Okay, that's more accurate. Yeah, 23 total. Okay, cool. This is the right number. So 65K, we're losing money, right? But that's what I know I got to hit. So I like to think about it from this terms of like, all right, how am I doing now? And then how much money do we have to do to be able to hit our break-even number? And so that's our kind of first rung to hit. And then we want to model out, all right, once we know what our break-even is, how much do we have to do in order to like make money and get a return? So what I'm going to do is just take this here. We'll hard code a couple of these boys, and then we go like this, then we go like this. All right, so that's like to start. That's where we got to get to. But I'm going to say, hey, I believe I can get this thing to 100K a month. How much money can we make? Right. So 100K a month. Cost of goods stays at 24%. Our payroll would probably come down a little bit. I don't think we'd run at 30% at 100K. We'd probably be a little bit lower, but for the sake of this exercise, let's just keep it same. Variable cost is still 13%, but rent's the same, property taxes the same, fixed costs roughly the same. So we'd be making, on here about 9.5%, which, and then annual. So let me just run some of these out. Okay, perfect. So $114,000. So I start with this. So we go back to like this question of, all right, does it fit my model? What's the potential income? Does it align with strategy? And then what are the resource costs? So for this one, I'm going to say, I think in the first year that I can get the business to this level. And I think that we can make, $114,000, $120,000, something in that range over the 12 months. And if we go back to like, what's the startup costs? We talked about, I think it's 110 is all in when I spent this, and our target year one profit is 114. So we're the goal for me is like I get all my money back in the first year. So for every new location, that's what I'm trying to do. So in this case, I'm putting $110,000 into this thing, and I'm pretty confident with the rent, with the spaces, with all the stuff that we can get $114,000 back. So I've got all my money back so I have no dollars into this thing, and then we look to grow it, right? So we're establishing the base. We start to build the reputation, and then we look to get this thing to, I don't know, let's say we can get it to 130,000 a month. Let's say that payroll is normally the number that comes down a little bit. That maybe we can get it down to 27. All the other costs stay the same. Maybe this goes up a little bit because of whatever. We got some more people. We got some more action going on, and then all of a sudden, by year 2, year 3, we got this store pumping at, 200K, 250K, something like that. So that's kind of the model that I'm looking at here, of how I approach a new location, which is timeline 30 days to get this thing rolling, because it's already shop. Costs 110K. I think I can make that back in the first year, and then boom. I don't think this is max. Like, what's the potential of it? I don't think 100K is the max. I think we can get this thing to 130 plus. Now I'm making like some pretty good money. I got no more costs into it, and it's like a pretty safe bet. So obviously a deal we did. If you want to see more about this specific one, I have done a couple other videos on it on YouTube. The one I recently did, this one. I did this one. I talked about it kind of in the total cost breakdown, and I did another one as well. But so cool. All right, let me handle some of these questions, and then we will get back into another type of deal here. So how do you work with cash savings when business loans are hard? Yeah, so there's a couple different ways you can do it. We follow let me just try to get you. Okay, cool. Okay, let me just try to make this look cool. All right. So we follow a system called Profit First, which is a book by Mike Michalowicz, I believe his name is, or something like that. It's on Amazon. It's a pretty good book. It's a pretty easy read. I can summarize the whole thing right now for you, though, which is that you set up, the goal is that you set up 3 bank accounts. And where most people have one account, right? You have one account that comes in. It's like your operating account. You're saving up for, you got to make payroll out of it. You got to pay your cost of goods. You got to pay rent. You also got to pay your taxes out of it. You got to, try to save money for future stuff. And there's this idea that, like, in Thanksgiving, where like you get this massive plate and then you fill it up with food and then you eat it all and you feel sick because and this is the idea that, like, the bigger your plate is, the more you eat. The bigger your shopping cart is at the grocery store, the more that you buy. And the bigger your bank account becomes, the easier it is to spend the money, because you're like, oh, I got money for this, I got money for that. And so his theory, which is really simple, which is that we're going to intentionally put a strain on the business's cash. Because when you have what feels like, strain, like you feel like, man, we don't have enough money in the bank account, like we got to go do something, it creates a sense of urgency. And that allows you to be creative, to be a little bit more like stingy with your money, where you're not really spending stuff that you shouldn't be. And then it also allows you to proactively save for future deals. And so you set up an operating account. So this is like literally what we do, right? This is even at the volume that I'm doing, like we do the same thing. So we have an operating account. So all money goes in. This is where we pay bills out of. And then we have a tax account. So this is basically savings for the government. So every quarter I owe whatever in quarterly taxes. Each week what we're doing is we're putting money into this account, and then every quarter when that tax bill is due, I'm not like taking it out of that my operating account. I've already got it saved up. I can write the check. If I've done a good job saving, I'll pay myself a little bonus out of that, so it actually like feels good around tax seasons instead of feeling like it sucks. And then a growth account. So, and this is where actually. We actually run 4 accounts now that I think of it. We call this then distributions. So then we run a growth account. So then this is where you would be allocating money towards your growth. So you cover all your bills, you put money away from the government, and then you're moving in whatever you want to invest into growth. So this is where you would proactively try to save up whatever you think the down payment would be for that next store, whether that's $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, whatever it is. That with this money is earmarked for the next investment. So when that deal comes along, you've already got a pretty good chunk of money ready to grow. All right. And then we have a distributions account. So for us, we max out that growth account. So then, we put money into the distributions account, which is like the profit account, which then at any point, my brother and I, who's my partner, we can choose to either take it as distributions to go put it in the stock market. We can buy real estate. We could also put it back into growing the business. There's, we're looking at multiple deals now that will require a lot more cash. And so we know the best investment for us is our own business. So that's what we'll do. But anyway, so that would be the main thing is as you start to move money out, you suffocate your operating account, which forces you to be more creative. So I have these jokes online about the K-Cup machines, but I'm kind of serious about it because, we spend all this money on businesses spend money on stuff that they believe drives value. We have fancy coffee machines. Customers are going to spend more money. And we end up spending $100,000 a year on K-Cups. But then it's we take the K-Cups out. Our customer experience has never been better. We've never had more cars coming in, 5-star reviews, sales, employee happiness. Well, employees, they get coffee in the back. But at the end of the day, this idea that spending money on fancy coffee creates a better customer experience to drive more revenue. For us, it doesn't. Or we find other ways to do it that then I can not spend $100,000 a year on that. And then instead, now I've got $100,000 a year I could put towards buying another store or investing in technology to, digital inspections on phones and meta glasses and stuff that we could actually use so the customer could have a better experience because we can send them videos and do all these other things. So that's really the point on being stingy is in a way is it's easy to spend and spend and spend, but does it really drive results in your business? And if not, I don't spend money on it. It's because and then find other ways that that can. So, and then one more question. Then I'll get back into deal number 2. I'm going to do a multi-unit deal here. So, how does insurance work across? Yeah, so we have a master policy with across all locations. They cover garage, auto, umbrella, EPLI, all that crap, and we it's renewed every year. I mean, we're getting big enough that we're looking at captives and we're not big enough for self insurance, but man, we spend a shitload of money on insurance, so it's a racket. So, all right. Cool. All right. And by the way, if anybody's interested, just so you guys know, I do have a program where I work with owners directly, help them implement all this stuff. And so if you're interested, you could kind of read it here. You can shoot me a message on Instagram with my name and I'll send you all the details, but you gotta be doing $1 million a year and want to grow. This is what we focus on. So, all right. Deal number 2. Yeah. Let's do an acquisition. All right. Alrighty, let me just make this look a little nicer. Cancel. All right, so next up, we're gonna do an acquisition. So on this deal, no borders. What the heck? All right, whatever. All right, so we're gonna do an acquisition of an existing franchise. So let me think. Yeah, we'll do this. We'll do this store. All right. So here's one that I bought in 2019, which was the 5th store that I owned. So this is it. It is. It's in Colmar, Pennsylvania, and pretty good looking shop from the outside. It's 8 bays. It's 7 or 8 bays. It's on a major road. Got a nice barbecue place across the street with a giant cow. We look at that footprint. It's actually this store. This is right next to the other one I was just talking about. So at the time, I didn't own all those. I just had these like, it was much scattered, but they're all on the Philly basis. So we go back to like my checklist here of things. Does it fit? Yes. Existing shop, good location, good footprint. I'm going to talk about the income. It aligns with the strategy. There was almost zero cost. If it's an existing, in our world, if it's an existing franchise, like we can go in, we don't have to spend any money on signage. We don't have to spend any money on like, waiting room upgrades if we don't want to. It's usually pretty good. So this was like, I'm going to say near zero in the beginning. Over time, many of these have deferred maintenance and stuff, but for the sake of it, they're fine. And then red flags. So here's the problem with this store, and I'll go over the deal terms, and then we'll go over the what it is. Okay. So the store revenue was $600K. The profit was zero. So he's doing $600K in revenue, making $0 in profit. So zero, making no money. Rent, which he owned the building, so I'm going to pay rent to him, was $5K. I think it's $5K. Pretty sure that's what it is. $5 or $6K. I think it's going up. But all right. So this is the initial terms of the store back in 2019, which was it's making no money. So I'd be buying this thing. The red flag and the concern is, again, am I going to be able to turn this thing around? This one had history though. So like the fear and the concern was this one, which if we go back to like the timeline where, actually, hold on. I gotta get the little man right outside. All right. So, see more dates. So 2025, let's see, 2018. All right. 2016, it was a competitor. And then before that, it was a different competitor. So it went from a Goodyear built the building, to United Tire, to a Midas, all within like the last couple of years. So, and none of them had success. So Goodyear failed, United Tire failed, the Midas, was not doing well either, failure by all accounts. And so that's like the red flag to say, is this location like just not a good location? Can it just like not work here for whatever reason? And am I willing to sign a 10-year lease on this building because that was what he wanted or needed? And do I really want to put the time, effort, and energy into this thing versus could I put it into another store and get a bigger and bigger results? So the deal that we came up with, and I negotiate all deals like this that are seller finance, which are $20K down. So I was going to give him $20,000 down, and then monthly payments of, I think it was $2,350 per month, and the term was, I think, 48 months. Let me just see if this maths. Yeah, something that's very close to this. Maybe it was a little bit less, but essentially this was essentially the deal, which was $20K down, $2,300 a month for 48 months. So all in, I would pay $132 down in total payments. This is like the strategy of how I negotiate almost all these seller financing deals, which are down payment, monthly payment, number of months. So down payment, monthly payment, number of months. It's super simple. It works really well. Rather than saying, well, I'll give you like $100,000 and $20,000 down, and then I want a 6% interest rate amortized over this and some balloon payments, and like you just like get too complicated. But what I found is like most business owners, they're used to getting monthly cash flow, right? You get monthly distributions, and so it's very easy to talk in terms of just like, hey, this is what I'm going to pay you every single month. So $20,000, that's what it cost me to take over the store. And my payment was 23 and that. So let's just like walk through, let's see, annual. Let me just walk through what the numbers were. And then what I thought, all right, how much more do I have to do to make sure this thing, can break even? Okay. So this is going to be like our starting point. And then I'm actually going to make this a little bit more complicated just because I think it requires it. All right. All right, pay percentage. So variable costs, rent costs. I think we said it was $5K was rent. Property taxes there. Yeah, that's about right. Fixed costs, let's say they are still the same. And then also I'm going to have this one. I'm going to have a debt payment. So we're going to add that in at 23. What do they say? 2350. Yeah, 2350. Okay. So all in costs. I should just make this a sum. Payroll, and then make sure I get my cost of goods. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, there we go. All right. Cool. Okay. All right. So yeah, this was essentially where we're at. How are we getting into the deal? Simpson asked, how are we getting into the SBA loan or no money down? This was a $20,000 down. So I had $20,000 out of my savings that I paid to get the deal. The rest, the seller financed. So there's no banks involved. So instead of me getting like 130 grand from a bank and making the payment to him, me and the seller signed the paperwork that just outlined the deal. That's I'm going to give you $20,000 a day, and then every month I'm going to pay you $2,350, and then at the end of the 48 months, I don't owe you anything. So seller financing, it's called. I've done 8 of these deals. I think it's like 25 of the 36 stores that I own are all exactly this model, seller financed in a very, very similar manner. So yeah, I've never actually had an SBA loan, and I only had one conventional bank loan. The rest have been seller finance deals, or we pay in cash. Okay, so starting point, this is where we're at. If this kind of makes sense, right? Because see how the profit is negative 7,000. Well, like part of that now I have to pay him rent where he wasn't paying rent before to himself, and the debt payment is like additional cash I'm going to have out of pocket that I'm going to count on the P&L, even though some of it's interest, some of it's principal, but that doesn't really matter. Okay. So the main thing that I want to know is what's my break-even point. So that's going to be the first thing that I'm going to think through is like, what do I got to get this thing to break even? I'm going to put in 75,000 because normally that's kind of what it is. And we're also going to assume on the payroll side, let me just do something a little special here. Okay, cool. There's this other idea that as the revenue grows, our payroll should be able to drop as a percentage because we dilute the cost of some of the salaries of people. And so let me just fix these. There we go. And so it's actually less than that, right? So we're actually going to be somewhere probably around 72,000, maybe 70,000. Okay, cool. So pretty much 70,000, right? So we're at 50,000. For me to break even on a monthly basis, I got to get this thing to $70,000 a month in revenue, so $20,000 more. And so that was like the first hurdle. And I believed you can do it. It's a big store. It's a big, it was a great location, and to me it was just more of like mismanagement and just not having the right people in there. And then again, it's like at scale, what does it do? We can get this thing down probably to 25%. We copy in that. And then again, very similar to before, which is a lot of these things do look good when we can get the volume up, right? If we can get this thing to 130K a month and we have cheap rent, 5K is like pretty cheap. Even with the debt payments, the store could produce, 25K a month, 300K a year. And really the challenge with any of these acquisitions is just your belief that like the store can do it, that you have the ability to do it, that you trust yourself, you trust your team, and that you're willing to do whatever it takes. And I think that's like the hardest part is the deal. A lot of the deals that are to be had, especially a deal like this, where I'm only in it for $20,000. Like that's a killer deal. This is the lowest cost deal I've ever had. But it's also like multiple people have failed. Why wouldn't I fail? That fear is what holds most people back. And I think, a lot of my success is in this idea that everything comes down to these three things, which is, can I build a team that can run without me? In terms of like, I can hire people, both managers, mechanics, district managers, now leadership people above them, in my case, that can run it. And the only way they can run it without you is if you can systematize everything, right? So you have a system of, okay, guys, this is how we systematize that when a customer calls, that we are going to convert them into a visit. And then when they're in the store, this is how we're going to present the work and sell the jobs and overcome the objections. And this is how we're going to present financing so that we can help make this affordable, because a lot of people don't expect to spend a bunch of money, right? And that we can we have a system for hiring. So we know that, okay, like with the people we have now, but like, let's fill in the gaps. So let's go and find better people. How do we attract good people? How do we get them to come aboard once we find them? How do we retain them so they don't go and quit and work for somebody else because they're making good money? They like the environment that we're in. There's development opportunities, and that we appreciate them. So all of that creates this team. And the longer that we can have great people together in a team, the more success we're going to have. And so this one is like the number one thing that I focus on, is what really allows me to have the confidence to know that, all right, I can go and I can buy a money losing store that everyone else has failed in there, but I have a system to install, even if it's an existing franchise. Like, just because we're a franchise, like we all run them like independent businesses. We just share a name, but like, we run it the way we want to run it, good or bad. And so we can install our people and our culture and all our systems into this box. Then that's how we can jump from here to here to here, right? And then from there, it's cash flow. Like, these are all cash flow businesses. None of us are going to get some big payday like the SpaceX guys this past week, right? Like, we have to make money every single month. And to do that, we have to dial in these numbers. So like, I am like, and I try to make it as simple as possible. Like, this is it. Like, we run a $50 million company, but like, this is how I think about it. It's this simple, which is like, these big numbers, which is, what do we have to do in revenue to break even? And then what do we got to do to actually make money at this thing to make it worth it? What does our cost of goods need to be? If this isn't right, what are we doing about it? We're underpriced. We're buying stuff for too much. We're discounting, right? That's it. It's not a lot of things. Payroll. We need payroll at 25% to make the money we want to make. If payroll's not, we don't have enough people. We don't have the right people. Our comp plans maybe aren't good enough. Ours are good now, but like, many of the times when we're buying these things and they're not making money, it's because they don't have the right people, they don't have enough people, and usually their pay plans suck. And so we fix that. And then having growth without chaos, right? And to grow without chaos is that you systematize everything. Simplicity scales, complexity fails. So the more that we can systematize, not only like what I talked about earlier, which is like the sales process and how we like talk to people and stuff, but like, think about, and I'm going to use automotive as an example, but if you're not in automotive, it's all the same, which is like, how do we deliver great service? How do we ensure that like every customer has a consistent experience in terms of the quality control? Do we have a follow-up process? How do we generate leads? Do we have checklists for things we do? Like, as much of it is that you can stamp them out step by step. Like, then you get, and then you start doing these deals. And the more that you do, the more confidence you have in going in and buying stuff that other people don't want or they failed at. And then you can go in there and then immediately, light switch moment, have success. And even the systematizing this, like, this is, I've done so many deals just like this one where, we're making down payment, monthly payment number of months, and then going in there and running our system. And so that would be my greatest advice for anyone that's like looking to duplicate, or as you analyze these deals, it's just really focusing on these things, which is, how do we build a team that runs without us? We know our numbers, so we can generate cash flow and can grow without chaos. And so, cool. So, all right, let's look at I'm going to talk about one I passed on. So now this is a multi-unit passed on. All right. So the scenario here was a acquisition of 5 stores in a new market. All right. So I can't, I have an NDA and stuff, so I can't tell you exactly where they were. But this is our current map of stores. This group of stores, it was 5 locations, and it was outside, kind of like, it was somewhere in like this area, but it was outside of our current footprint. So, which I like. I actually like that, because from a model standpoint, when we go near our long-term strategy, I want to grow in a way that is spidering out from our existing footprint. Like, I want to grow, like, I'd much rather continue to grow like here and then here and then here and then here and then here, or like up this way, or like up this way, or this way, or down this way. Like, that to me is much easier and feels safer than me like saying, hey, we're gonna go buy stores in Pittsburgh, or we're gonna go in Columbus or Indiana or like Albuquerque, right? Because once you get on a plane, like, you lose all the synergies that you have in your existing market. And so a big part of it, like, is when you want to map out your growth, and you want to map out, like, in what's the type of business I really want to run, and like, what does success look like? And I want people to grow and develop within our organization. Like, if the opportunity is like, hey, if you want to grow, you got to relocate your whole family out to a new state. For me, I'd rather say, let's stay within driving distance. Much easier to get people to locate to, Harrisburg or Scranton or Long Island than maybe to go to, like, Tucson or Albuquerque or something. So long-term strategy, yes, within driving distance. That's my, like, for me, that's my thing. Does it fit my model? Yeah, these were existing, 6-7 bay shops. Potential income, we'll talk about that. Resource, these would have a huge one due to the distance and the conversion. So these were competitors. I'm gonna talk about that, and then the red flags is gonna be round. Come to Scranton, yeah. Maybe one day. I'm trying. All right, so. Let's go over some more of the details, and I'll show you some of this, how I analyze this one. All right, so let me just delete these. All right, so when I do a multi-store deal, it's a very similar. These are going to be stores, right? So let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I might have to fix my little screen here in a second, but all right, then multi-unit or support. All right, let me just this. I'm just making sure you guys can see my screen. Okay. So when I build out when I'm looking at a multi-unit deal, so whether I'm looking at like my own stores or I'm looking at like an acquisition where we're buying a bunch of stores in a row or a bunch of stores together. This is basically what I'm going to build an Excel spreadsheet that looks like. So I have all the stores to go across, and then I'm going to have a support. Support is going to be our multi-unit expense. So now let's get into some of these. So let's see. There's one store that was doing that. Yeah, I'd say there was another store doing that. There's probably another store doing that. There's probably another store doing 100 and 125. So now we're going to support. Hold on, let me just give me a second. I'll just get this thing built up. Total 5 million. Profit. Okay, cool. Let me just continue to try to squeeze this in so you guys can see it on my little screen here. There we go. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to build something that looks like this. So for this group of stores, I think it was doing less than that. It was maybe 120 a month. This was roughly the number. So the group of stores did about anywhere from $50,000, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000, $120,000. So a range. They weren't terrible. All their cost of goods were a lot higher than mine. So maybe it was like 28%. Payroll, I want to say, was also around 29% per store. Like, what I would actually do here is go through and we'd figure out the, what the actual payrolls are. But for that, I'll address the multi-unit in a little bit separately. All right, variable expenses. So variable expenses are going to be, kind of are what they are. Their variable expenses are the same across the board. Now rents. Rents is where we started to have problems, because the rents looked something like this. Oops, 1,000, 7,500. There was like a 13. And property taxes. I think these were a little bit cheaper here. There was something like that. There's something like this. So property taxes were a little bit cheaper, but the rents were crazy. 10,000, 12,000, 7,000, 9,000, 13,000, like really, really pretty high rents. And so now debt, I would have a bunch of debt for these. I'd have to put so that this deal was I would need about $1 million was the total, like all in. So for down payments, I need 20% down. The term I would have gotten, I would have got probably a 10-year. The rate right now, probably about 7%. And if you don't know, like in Excel, like if you go PMT, you can create a little payment calculator. So you put in the, hold on, I think PMT. Usually it tells you, okay, it's the rent, it's the rate divided by 12, the term in months, and then the loan amount, which would be, actually I messed this up, hold on. So the loan would be this, that'd be the down payment. Oh my God. All right, and then the loan. All right, guys, there we go. There we go. 800K. So then we put the loan in, the negative loan amount in here. So $9,200. Okay. All right, that was way more difficult than I thought it'd be. So if you want to do a payment calculator, put in your down payment, what your loan about, your term, your rate. Use this PMT thing. You just take the interest rate, divide by 12, do the number of years times 12 because it's supposed to be in months, and then the loan amount. So I would have a 9,200, which divided by 5 locations would be 1,858 a month. So that's how I would picture it. All right. So all in costs here. Let's just go through this. I would be buying these stores. All in, they're losing $16,000 a month, which is because these rents are super high. All right. And even this store, like we saw some of my other stores here that, like if I had this store doing 120, I'd be making 250. I got this store doing 120. And yeah, granted, like payroll's too high, cost of goods is high, rent's high, but it's like barely, it's barely making any money. And so that's what like scared me. But worse than this is because it's a new market, you're going to need a support person in there. And so, you're probably going to be $120,000 a year to get, somebody who lives in the market with base and bonus and payroll taxes and all the other stuff. That person's also going to have probably a vehicle. You're probably going to have additional like software expenses. You're probably going to have additional like just other costs associated with opening a new market. So it's probably going to cost you another $30,000. So all in now, let me think here. Oh, that was a month. Oh, sorry. That was a month. These are months. I put years. So $10,000 a month and $3,000 or $2,500 a month. There we go. So now we look at this deal and we're thinking like, we're buying this thing for $1 million for five stores, and that $1 million includes maybe some renovations I'd have to do as well. It was actually a better deal than that. But all in, I'm buying this thing, and it's day one losing $350,000, which is like a lot of money. And so then we're like, all right, well, let's just like run the scenarios, right? Let's just like run this thing to see could we make money here? And so let's just start. So we're at negative 352. And then we're like, all right, so we think that, we could get all these stores to, let's just say, 100K in revenues a month. Maybe this really good one, we can get to 150. We believe that maybe our cost of goods, we can get that down to our model at 24. Maybe payroll, we can get down to only 100K though. We're still gonna be like pretty high. We'll still probably be like 28. Maybe this one we can get down to 25. And then we go then we're down from here. And then, all right, so now these stores are making money. We got 500K swing right now. We think we can make 500K out of it. But we're only at an 8% margin, 7.5% margin. And these numbers, by the way, these are before taxes. These are before CapEx or any other bigger cost we'd have to incur. So, so I don't know. For us, it was a new market, and the new market's day one, we're losing $30,000 a month. How long is it going to take us to get this thing to, a better number? And even when we get it to the better number, we're still single digit margin for carrying the risk, having these leases that were locked in for a very long time, and needing to put a ton of resources into it, because we have to remodel every store. We need signage. We're going to have to restaff the store. They were a different business model than us a little bit. So we would be changing the business model in a way. And so it was just, for me, it just became the resource cost was huge. And the and it's further, and the rents, and we talked to other people who are in the market, and our competitors, maybe it's a little contradictory what we said earlier, but every one of the competitors struggle here. It's a tough, economically depressed area. And so at least that was our perspective on it all. And so anyway, this was a deal that we ended up passing on because it was it was too many things going against us. And then we thought the upside was just not worth the risk of it all. So anyway, that's kind of my process here of how we go things. So when I'm looking at deals, does it fit the model? As much as you can simplify it, do that. I want to look at the income. When I look at the income, rent, I'm looking at the rent cost and just overall fixed costs versus what do I think the store can do from the location, and just the atmosphere of it. I want to have very clear long-term strategy of where I want to go, and does this align with it? What's going to be the total cost, time, and energy and effort to put into this thing, versus I could put that same effort, time, costs, or whatever into my existing business and grow it more profitably. And red flags, it's super easy for me to get excited by a deal. I want to take a step back and look at what are the things that I'm not seeing. And so if you enjoyed this and you want my help, I work with a couple new people per month inside 8Figure, where we help them do these 3 things. So if you do over $1 million a year in revenue or 10K a month, and you want to grow and you're committed to doing the work, then find me on Instagram, shoot me a message, the word Beers, my last name, and I'll send you the details. So of what it looks like to work together. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next week.